And welcome to Night Protest. This is Donald Jeffries coming to you from just outside the swamp infested Washington, D.C., as I do every Friday from at this time. We have a special guest today that came highly recommended by a young lady, Piper Fogel, who's a big fan of yours, E.M. Burlingame. Very impressive resume, including being with Special Forces and a Green Beret. He's been in finance, lots of other stuff. Now he's a prolific writer on Substack, and he writes about some of the same issues that I touch on. And I think we can have a great discussion. Ian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not putting you in danger there in proximity to the swamp.
I've been on every list there is, I think, for a very long time. So hopefully they haven't gotten me yet. That's, I get that all the time from people that say, well, how come they haven't killed you? You must not be legitimate. Apparently, the only way you can be legitimate is to be killed. So I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far.
So I used to live in the high ground of the swamp there in Georgetown, so I know it quite well.
Okay, yes, and I see Piper Fogel in the chat too. So, anyhow, so basically, you were a Green Beret Special Forces. So I'm guessing you weren't. I've been a radical my entire life. I was a teenager. I was a radical. I was saying the same stuff I'm saying now. Basically, it's just more stuff to talk about. But there's millions more people that talk about it now. Back then it was pretty lonely. Being entertaining at parties maybe, but beyond that, not much. So so how do you go from being a Green Beret to kind of going into this world where you're basically a thought criminal?
Well, it's even worse. I came out of Silicon Valley and the tech scene and fintech and investment banking, private equity, and I was on my way to be one of the financialists that I write so much about now. Yes. And then some circumstances happened. I decided there was a war going on. I needed to, go be a special operations guy, Green Beret in particular, because of the mission set, and go see what was going on outside the security bubble. And that opened up some awarenesses. And then I incurred some physical brain injuries that derailed the path I was on, but opened up other things. And in the recovery from that and the recovery process, got to see, and being derailed from, building high frequency algorithmic trading platforms and all that kind of stuff, which I went to do my doctoral studies in. And, so I was heading down the pathway to be one of these, big money guys, but life kept stepping in over the last 25 years and every time I thought, okay, I'm going to go down this path, something would step in and take me off it. And here I am, couple decades, 2.5 decades later, realizing that what I had seen coming, what was being developed in Silicon Valley, not intentionally, we really were trying, most of us that I know, were really trying to change the world for the better, but we were being corrupted and co-opted and bought off with stock options and fame and, being on the cover of Wired magazine and all that stuff. So that's what got me here ultimately.
Cool. Yeah, so basically, I imagine you saw. Did what you see while you were inside Special Forces, or when you were dealing inside Silicon Valley, did any of that contribute to, I guess, your skepticism, cynicism, whatever you want to call it?
No, well, no, I got to blame my Wallace mother, my Scottish Wallace mother, for that. And living with, on a hippie commune when I was young for a while and not liking the hippies at all, but, and trying to develop my life in direct refutation, and then realizing, well, maybe about 30% of what the hippies were saying, starting back in the early 70s when I was first really conscious of these conversations, maybe about 30% of what the hippies were saying were right. And one of the things my mother taught me as an old Scottish family, descendant of an old Scottish family, is that never trust the 3 Bs: businessmen, bankers, and bureaucrats. They're always the enemy. They're parasites, and they are trying to harm you, whether you're a peasant or an old noble family. They're sitting in between, parasitizing on both and turning each against one another. So that's really what started. And, then I didn't want to listen to that or hear that, but unfortunately, life or the old gods have a way of making you listen.
Right. So you said you're pretty much just a writer now, and so am I. But so how is it in terms of when you're writing? I know you've written several books. Have they been published, or are they all on Substack?
Oh, no, I've got 6 or 7 books out right now. I'm finishing up an 8th one, and I think I've got probably a 9th one I'm going to finish over the next month or so. And then I've got a novel that I'm serializing on Substack, which is called As Rome Burns.
I know. When I just reading your writing, you write like a novelist, and I do too. I've had one novel published, but the rest has been nonfiction. So I see that the world through a novelist's eyes, and I can tell you do too. Your language and everything. It's very interesting. But so when you look at the world, what would you call yourself now in terms of? I'm just reading what I read of you. I'm not sure what you are. It looks to me like you're talking about the men. So I imagine you understand the lower testosterone and the way they've pretty much cucked out, especially the white race, and in terms of what they seem to want to get rid of us. Is that the way you see things?
Well, first off, I just posted something on this yesterday, I think, maybe the day before. It all runs together now. Don't trust the testosterone level stuff. That all comes from certain studies funded by certain, so there is a war, there is a all-out attempt to discredit young men and to keep older men from developing the capacities of younger men, and that testosterone level thing and all of that it's part of that smoke and mirrors. With respect to the white race, we're not a race, we're a whole bunch of different ethnic groups. They don't really want to wipe us out because that's what they are. They just want to get us into a place of disgust and rage so that we kill all the undesirables for them, while further, while destroying, reducing our numbers, destroying ourselves, excuse me, and further entrenching their, financialist kill chain system. So they want us to believe that, they want to wipe out, the European ethnicity peoples, but that's not the case.
I know you talk a lot about basically you're describing eugenicists, and you wrote a lot about them as well. And we saw that during the COVID psyop, especially. I don't know how many they've eliminated, but it looks like they've gotten rid of quite a few people with that. But everything they do seems to be consumed with lowering the population. And what is is it Alex Jones or people like that, right? When he talks about that these people are so crazy that they want to merge with AI, and that's why they're pushing AI. They actually want to merge with AI and get their immortality that way.
Yeah, so it's hard to keep up with Alex Jones, so I don't try. Something about a broken clock's right twice a day, right?
Yeah, well, he was the first one that talked about that. Yeah, certainly he's.
Yeah. So the thing, I wrote a book called The Eternal War maybe 5 years ago. It's a 100-page-ish primer, and I spent decades doing the research and studies right down to neuroscience and everything else. There's factions in all things, and the resentfuls is collectively the ones behind all of this nefarious stuff in the world. And they have factions. There's 2 primary factions, ones that we call in the modern last century and a half, et cetera, but they go back thousands of years. And, that's the Marxist faction that wants to burn everything to the ground and build their utopia out of the ashes. It's a utopia of the insane, quite literally. And then there's the National Socialist. I don't want to call them Nazis because that's got so connotation, et cetera, but they're National Socialists. They're resentfuls, et cetera, and they want to take total and absolute control so that they can, bring about their utopia from, controlling all the systems and institutions. So within so those are 2 major factions, and they might collaborate sometimes, but they're really at all-out war with one another. And there's factions within each of those, and the transhumanists are just one of the many factions within, the resentfuls. Ultimately, the National Socialist-minded people tend to dominate over time, and they want purity. They're purity-minded.
Who would you consider a National Socialist in our leadership today?
Uh, all of the EU government.
Well, what
Uh,
well, how does the purity concept, how does that jibe with them bringing in so many
well,
migrants, non-white migrants?
when you realize that they were brought in to trigger disgust, that's why the rape gangs and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
When we realized that they were brought in specifically for us to kill them, then a lot of things make sense. So Europe has no natural resources. Europe has no collateral. Europe has to recollateralize. What do? Well, you bring in mass amounts of disposable slaves and you put them in labor death camps, all because you've driven your people to disgust. And you put them in labor death camps to suddenly, rapidly, at as lowest cost possible, reindustrialize and rearm. I think it's going to fail. I think it's failing because they counted on the United States, and it turned out the United States, at least some of the princely families, the old original stock families, said no. And we're taking the United Kingdom from them, which is what the visit with His Majesty and His Royal Highness was just all about.
Tell
So
me,
the
what do you
Commonwealth.
mean? We're taking, what do you mean? We are taking the kingdom from the UK?
We are taking the crown and the United Kingdom, the Commonwealth, out of control of Europe. Now, it's still
How about
somewhat up to the British people of the Isles, and they're going to have to stand and fight, and we can't just go strong arm ourselves in there because that doesn't work over time. But that's what that was just about. We support the crown. We will defend and protect the crown, not just His Majesty the King now, but His Royal Highness Prince William when he becomes king. We are telling Europe, you do not have the assets of the Commonwealth, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, et cetera, et cetera. Those are being taken off the table, and we will fight you for it.
do you see any, because right now in terms of Europe, certainly in the United States, I mean, you have some demonstrations going on in the UK and Australia, I know, but here in the United States, I don't see any indication. I mean, people are upset about illegal immigration. They're in the UK, they're certainly upset about migrants, and what you mentioned, the rape gangs and stuff, but I don't see them making any headway. And the government seems to, last year when they had these more demonstrations, they really cracked down on. They threatened to arrest Elon Musk.
Yeah,
So, what is that? Is that part of the game, you think?
no, I mean, it's a more complex answer than just yes, no. No, it's not part of the game. Again, there's factionality in all things, including our own government, etc. What just happened last week with the assassination of Charlie Kirk by insane young men playing a game, because that's what they were doing, is playing what's called an alternate reality game, run by the Azovs, most likely by that trans American who was a high-ranking propagandist official in the Ukrainian military or government, excuse me. The only real asset, quite across the board, the only real asset of a people is the violence of men, the controlled, shaped, directed violence of men. And the government of the United States has mostly lost the respect of men. Now they're doing everything they can with Hegseth and everything else to try and recover it. But point being is this: the thought that men like myself and others won't stand and fight for our lands. In the war on terror, we killed something like 4 to 11 million. We don't know, it might be twice as many as that in their countries. We think we won't kill 5 times that much in our own countries to retain our own lands. I couldn't care less about Europe. That's not my, I got family in Europe, but they're English, right? I do care about England and Scotland. I've got direct family there. So point being is this: it's not, I do see everything that the silent and boomer and older Xers can do with the federal government is happening. Constitutionality is being restored. It's extraordinary. Look at the rulings that are coming out of SCOTUS. Look at, the things that are happening. It's extraordinary. World War III is being taken off the table systematically. We're dismantling all that, World War III infrastructure, assets, networks, et cetera, around the world. Extraordinary. We're doing that in partnership with other people. We're now going to have a fight at home. We were always going to have a fight at home, but now we got to fight at home. And the fight, and I wrote a piece this morning about how forced demographic changes are used in the collapse phase of the financialist kill chain to then set up the next 300 to 1,000 years of ethnic, cultural, religious warfare within your borders. That's what's being set up. Well, here's the thing. The global war on terror was not a conventional force-on-force war. It was a counter-terrorist, counterinsurgency war. And there's a vast number of men, and some women, but a vast number of men specifically from Xers, my generation, who served in it, all the way down to younger millennials, who understand counterinsurgency and counterterrorism.
But those men that you're talking about that fought that killed the war on terror, as George Bush referred to, that was all through the military. They were ordered to. In other words, that was their assignment. Do you really think that we anywhere in these countries have the masculinity, the gumption, or whatever to fight? Because we've had a slow erosion of our rights here in this country for a long time. Our civil liberties, we can't even get rid of the school boards that are teaching our children stuff we don't want. I mean, they continue to somehow get in office.
Over 1,000 years now, the English-speaking peoples have fought this out. And we've been at this place before more than once. And actually, if you look at history, every 400 years, going back to 44 AD, we are in this same place where it's an all or nothing fight. And so far, our men, with the permission of our matriarchs and our high-level women, have fought the fight. And the point I was making about the so what? We had orders to fight and kill. We didn't have orders to fight and kill 4 to 11 million people. Maybe official orders to kill, or who knows, maybe on the order of 300,000 people across the whole 25 years in all the countries and everything we were fighting. The rest of them are collateral damage. Point being is that wasn't on our land. That wasn't for our land. It wasn't for our territory. And it wasn't for orders. It was standing next to your brother. Well, we're standing next to our brother in our own country for our own lands. We'd do something 10 times, 100 times more, and we don't need orders. And that's where it's getting. And that's the point. What just happened with the Charlie Kirk assassination is that and I'm not behind that. I'm fundamentally against it. Those are the enemy, right? But what just happened is that young men who did everything they were told to do, gender bending, sexuality bending, species sexuality bending, everything they were told to do to earn status, not only didn't earn them status, but made them pariahs in the world of man. And what was their reaction? Let's make them hear us. These were crazy young men with no training, no background, whatever, and they just assassinated Charlie Kirk on live TV. Did they get assistance? Probably, absolutely. But the point is, people do not understand how forgiving and patient killers are. Controlled killers, not psychopaths and sociopaths, etc. We are amazingly patient and understanding because we know that when we move, people die.
But you don't find the official story about this guy Robinson? I mean, I've written
most of it's bullshit. I've wrote about that. It's all bull. But the community, the network, all of that, not all of the narrative is bullshit. 90% of the narrative is true. Now, were there other things going on? Were there other assistance? Was there other guidance? Were there other? So in an alternate reality game, which people need to study because that's what that was, somebody's a game runner. Somebody's doing the little injects and the little social media injects and the media injects and little board and secret, There's all this stuff that happens in an alternate reality game. Somebody was running that game. It doesn't mean that the people that were playing the game aren't legitimate and that those aren't the real things in the game.
So you don't, who do you think was running it? Who do you think was running
The
it?
Azovs. I just think straight up was Azovs. Because that's what
Describe
comes.
what the Azovs are. I don't recognize that name.
Nazis. Straight up
Nazis.
Nazis out of the Ukraine. Look at the Banderites, the Azov. These aren't neo-Nazis. That's a bullshit thing meant to distract us. These are actually the descendants of straight up Nazis. Look at them. We're finding them all over the world, running ISIS groups, running Al-Qaeda terrorist groups, running Al-Shabaab, all kinds of things. Look at how the Banderites, which is what the Azovs are, look at how Stefan Banderite's people were used from the 1940s on directly by the CIA and MI6.
But you don't think Israel had any involvement?
No, that's ludicrous.
Well, I mean,
so here, hold on a second. Israel, the Jews are the smartest people on earth and also the dumbest fucking people on earth. Come on, man. They're the whipping boys.
I'm just saying that, the only thing that appeared to change in Charlie Kirk's life in the time leading up to his death, he made several speeches that are video recorded where he talked about.
That's not what got him killed. What got Charlie Kirk killed is he was a moderate who was talking to young men, telling them that there's a moderate pathway to strength. They have to remove the moderate in order to drive us all to disgust so that we go to slaughter, other and self. That's the pattern. Charlie Kirk was killed, had nothing to do with Israel, had nothing to do with any of those bullshit things. They killed Charlie Kirk because he was a moderate who taught young men how to talk, how to communicate, how to think. And that is exactly the opposite of what the enemies want, the enemies of our civilization, our culture, and our peoples. The ones trying to steal our lands to re-collateralize their system. And that ain't the Jews.
Well, when you talk of the Azovs, I'm interested where they have any power, because Nazis are demons.
They're all over the world.
In terms of our culture, I mean, they still make movies constantly about them. I mean, I don't see them getting any good press at all. If they have power, you think they'd try to put themselves in a good light once in a while?
Yeah, that's not how the world works, man. That's not how the world works. That's not how this kind of power works. That's not how ideological warfare works. It's not how resentfuls work. That's not how psychopathy, sociopathy works.
Explain what resentfuls are. What does that term mean?
These are people that are deeply motivated by a sense of envy. And that sense of envy doesn't get checked, and it becomes malevolence, and unchecked malevolence becomes evil. I've written a book about it. There's 13 doctrinal lines that you can look at neuroscience. We see it in animal species, not just human species. And they run out their doctrine in 13 different lines of effort. And by the way, there was a guy that wrote it almost precisely the Resentfuls playbook, which was Saul Alinsky and the 13 rules for radicals. That wasn't something he just made up. That was legitimate doctrinal lines of effort. So I wrote the book about further elaborating on those and what are the counters to those on the responsible side. But these are people that break down into basically two factions. One faction wants to burn everything to the ground so they can build their insane utopia. And the other faction wants to control everything so that they can manage and own their insane utopia. One is, ideological purity, insanity, and the other one's ethnic, racial, cultural purity, insanity.
Where do you see Trump fitting in this? He's the giant orange lightning rod in the middle of everything. What do you consider Trump?
Well, he's the hired help. He's the front man. He's the entertainer. Now he's very capable and he's a prince. He's on the responsible side. Trump is a member of a very powerful group of people who are against all of that, who don't want to see Western civilization, particularly English civilization, collapse. They don't want to see the United States flooded with, tens of millions. We're roughly probably somewhere between 80 and 100 million immigrants right now. Those are the real numbers because it goes back over 40 years. So these are the old original families. They all consider themselves originally English because they are. And they don't want to see, our society, our civilization, our culture, and our peoples, one, replaced and wiped out. And two, we don't want to lose the lands of our ancestors, because that's what this is all really about. Everything we see is about is a financial system that was put in place in the Peace of Westphalia on the continent and in the glorious revolution in England in 1688. And it's a monetary financial oligarchic system.
What lands do you think, when you talk about guarding the land, are you talking about individual property, or these public lands, and who was out to take them?
The financialists. I wrote a book called The Financial Kill Chain. It's out there on Amazon.
I
laid this out.
BlackRock and things like, okay, because I mean they're certainly buying up enough property.
Yeah, well, that's the financialists. That's the resentfuls. BlackRock is the Nazi bank for all intents and purposes.
I mean, it looks like they're trying to make it. It's already hard enough for people to afford to certainly even to rent, let alone buy a place. But is that part of the? I'm trying to figure out who the conspirators. Because typically in our world, we look at global forces or the New World Order types that are trying to set something like that. What do you think? What do you think is going on here?
These are the Praetorians of Rome who controlled Rome for 300 years. It's the same institutions, organizations, organizational thinking. Some of the banks, unbroken, go back to Venice. I've written about all this in the Financialist Kill Chain, the book, and articles, and etc. These, give me 1 second. Plato and Socrates wrote about the dangers of oligarchy. And that's what these are. This is an oligarchic financialist system. What are those? Those are slaver systems. You don't ever eradicate slavery. It just adapts. It's a pathogen. It's a highly infectious, highly adaptive pathogen. And it gets into everything, and it corrupts and co-ops everything. Down underneath it, what is it? It is always about the land, because the land is the hard collateral upon which their entire derivative, $5 quadrillion derivatives, that's not exaggerated number, that's, it might be higher, estimates are as high as $11 quadrillion in derivative wealth built off of one hard collateral asset, and that's land. But you have to, under contract law, you have to physically take possession of that land. And that means you have to remove the young men and the men writ large who will stand and fight you from taking possession of it. So we can call them Nazis, we can call them financialists, we can call them resentfuls, whatever, right? Depending on the conversation. But they're slavers, and they're financialist slavers, and they need to take our land to recollateralize their system, which after 400 years is bankrupt, and we don't have the manpower armies to take, to conquer Russia or to conquer China or anybody else. And Africa is standing up, and most, our populations are declining. So we don't have the manpower to go fight foreign wars for them anymore. And Russia has proven that you can't take Russia, and China, nobody's going to try that. It'd be stupid to try and fight China. Right? They could spend 300 million men, and right? Stupid. Mm-hmm. So point being is that what do they have left? What lands do they have left in order to recollateralize their system? It's ours. But what do they need to do? Well, they need to demoralize young men and radicalize young men and get young men in disgust. So we're fighting Muslims and all this other stuff. And those are genuine fights we're going to have to deal with. But they want us to get into the same disgust place the Germans did in the 1930s, that then led to somewhere between 5 and 7 German men being killed.
Right. But I'm just trying to figure out, in your world, in your view, because you're using terms that are different than most people, and they're interesting, obviously. And I like refreshing, viewpoints, and so this is definitely different. But I'm trying to figure out, most of us are so jaded, we don't think there are any good guys. None of these people are good guys, and I'm sure you probably think most. Yeah.
We wouldn't be here if there weren't good guys in history. Come on.
Well, who would you think are today? Who are the good guys? I mean, Thomas Massey, I think is great. I'm not sure who else is an elected
So here's
representative.
okay. So forgive me. Okay. This is binary thinking, right? Try to go, well, who's who and who's what? Who knows? It's not that. It's mindset and action. Who has the mindset that is humanist and is demonstrating through their actions, one, that they have a complexity of thought and knowledge, that they understand what they're really fighting. Not doesn't as matter as much who, but what are we fighting? What mindset are we fighting? What is the nature in which our enemy fights, the anti-humanist, slaver enemies? If we're chasing down, well, it's this specific person and that, I'm going to tell you honestly, most of the people that go down that pathway work for, normally that I run across, are people that work for one or more of the intelligence agencies in one of the clever ways, because that's the surest way to demoralize us and get us chasing down all these rabbit holes so that we don't see the actual war we're engaged in, the fight we're engaged in. We are fighting in a war between humanity and inhumanity. It's that simple. Now, who's who at what time and where and what system and what organization, we got to deal with that as it's going. Now, we can have some higher probabilities of things because of what they're saying and doing, but even those things change and adapt, because what is the way in which resentfuls primarily fight? Deception. So I don't pay attention to this person, that person, et cetera, sometimes in some ways. What I pay attention to is, how is the war fought? How do the resentfuls fight? And how do the responsibles fight? And then watch for their actions, because the responsible quite often has to act like a resentful, talk like a resentful, carry themselves as a resentful so they can get the responsible stuff done. Now, if they start going into the resentfuls kinds of anti-humanist, burning people, using people, devouring people, enslaving people, et cetera, it's like, well, you're a resentful, and now you're just masquerading as a responsible.
Give us some examples of this fight that's going on today, and we're responsible, or we're fighting resentfuls, and what would be examples of responsibles?
Okay, so let's take a prime example. There is an all-out fight through the Department of Justice and those defending and supporting the Department of Justice to return constitutionality to the United States through the lower court's rulings, and the Supreme Court then having to step in and say that lower court ruling is unconstitutional. There were 13 of them that went the way of the Department of Justice this week alone. We haven't seen that. We've never seen that degree before. Okay? So that's an example of one of these fights where a deep understanding of our Constitution, which is a truly humanist document, a truly humanist structure for us to live under. It needs to be updated. We need to improve some stuff through the amendment process. But the most clear example of a humanist fight, of the war and a humanist fight right now, is constitutionality, at least at the federal level, is being restored in the United States. And I'll give you another example of that, even before Trump came back in office, was the striking down of the Chevron doctrine, which gave the resentfuls, the anti-humanists, the ability to use regulators to create all these ad hoc laws, right? These illegitimate laws through fiat, through the pen. That's all responsibles, humanist warfare playing out right before our eyes. I'll give you another one. We are steadily burning World War III assets, the assets over the last 40 years that were put in place to launch World War III. And World War III is steadily being taken off. Our ability and our quote unquote allies' ability to launch World War III is steadily being taken off the table.
What assets are you referring to? What assets are you referring to that are being burned?
We just disarmed Europe in Ukraine war. We're just disarming the Middle East right now with these little hits on Iran and Syria. The fight in Syria, we're sucking all these terrorist organizations in Syria to fight Turkey and Israel. And all the clandestine covert operations networks are getting highlighted because the strikes on Lebanon and the pagers and then the targeted strikes in Iran, and then the targeted drone strikes on the bombers in Russia, all that's calling out covert clandestine networks. It probably took 20 years to put in place. And now those countries, is Iran, Russia in particular, are going after all that human infrastructure, all that covert infrastructure, and tearing it out. And now we're doing the same in South and Southeast Asia with this conflict between Myanmar, Burma, and Thailand, between Cambodia, and we're burning it up. We're allowing a little bit of a bushfire, letting it flare up, burn up those assets, and then in the process of that, the covert clandestine networks are getting ripped out. And then what we do? We went to Europe and said, you can go ahead and fight the war, but Article 5 won't, or 4, or whatever it is, won't apply.
How does us continue to give so much money to Ukraine? How does that fit into this?
That money was already earmarked. There's very little we can do. Right. But there's another thing going on there. So again, those arms, and it's not really money. It's mostly arms. It's monies that go to our own, developers, et cetera. So, okay, well, we haven't highlighted all of Europe's capacities to start World War III yet. So there's a certain amount of letting that drag on that we have to do. We're in a mob war.
So Trump wouldn't have the power, or the administration wouldn't have the power to just cut off funding there? Why couldn't they do that?
They'd frickin' impeach him. Like they did in the last frickin' administration. They'd go after him and impeach him. Don't think that he doesn't have, he's not a dictator. He doesn't have king power, absolute monarch powers. And he's got to deal with the Congress is barely not fully traitorous.
What do you
and the courts and the work in the courts of restoring constitutionality of courts so that the executive has constitutional executive powers restored to him is also not complete yet. So he doesn't have the fiat dictat. Apologies, there's a little delay, I think. So forgive me. Yeah.
How do you think the response to the killing of Charlie Kirk from both the left and the right? Because we've seen some, the left obviously, celebrating it and the kind of stuff which they're kind of known for, unfortunately. But this right thing, and again, I'm the last person to be a fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I think he was ever on the air, any of these guys. But are you concerned that that's a slippery slope there by the government getting involved there and trying to pressure somebody to follow?
That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Jimmy Kimmel's show hasn't made money short of USAID backdoor NGO funding, advertising funding for years, ever, actually in its entire history. And now all that funding's dried up. They're losing something like $40 million a year on the show. They were just looking for a reason to cancel it, but blame it on the other side. The government had nothing to do with Jimmy Kimmel's show.
Well, I don't think any of these shows. What's it? Rachel Maddow is paid an incredible amount, and she I don't know how much money they lose. And she makes nothing. So why is she on the air?
I don't know. This is how the war fights. It's not obvious. Have you ever been in war, man? You ever fought an unconventional war?
No, I haven't. I was never involved.
You studied it? It's not like this linear this, and we do this. It's not like that. It's move, counter move. Everything's about deception, clouding what you're doing, trying to get the maximum advantage out of, right? And we don't get to dictate, so the anti-humanists are always the resentfuls, are always at least a half a step ahead of the responsibles, because at least they have a firm agenda, which is to tear it all down and replace it and take control. And the responsibles are trying to stop that. But at the same time, responsibles are having to run companies and businesses and institutions and organizations and deal with personnel and family and all this other kind of stuff. So the responsibles are always accepting some very rare periods in time where for at least a few years they can come together enough and the people can come together and there's enough obviousness of how bad the anti-humanists are that, we can come around a real fight. That's all just shaping up right now. And so the resentful, yes, Rachel Maddow, although I don't pay attention to any of them, so I don't know, but Jimmy Kimmel was low-hanging fruit. Rachel Maddow's probably gone too, but here's the other thing. Even with USAID funding gone, there's about $100 trillion offshore war chest for this fight to continue. And they're going to use as much as they can for the 5th gen information wars they can, but they have to keep a sizable portion of the war chest so that they can fund actual kinetic fights.
What happened to Doge, by the way? I mean, the USAID revelations were great, and then it just stopped. Weren't they supposed to audit the Pentagon and audit the Fed and all that stuff? Congress stopped it. Well, it's a shame, because that showed a lot of. Do you find when you're talking about anti-humanist or humanist, I think this is a spiritual battle. I mean, I think to me, I didn't look at it like as a Christian, as somebody. I think this is a battle with really satanic forces. Do you see it that way?
It could be. It's not how I see. I'm a war fighter. I was an investment guy and built tech companies and done a bunch of stuff. And now I do medical stuff and medical research, et cetera. And I'm an engineer by training and education. And I see things in the fight that I have to fight as a human. Is there some bigger spiritual thing going on? I don't know, maybe. But I don't go down that pathway. Again, for the book, The Eternal War, I spent years studying the history of single-celled organisms in the community, communities of single-celled organisms, and watch how viruses and adverse bacteria work. Is that a spiritual war? Is that good versus evil? I don't know. It's biological warfare that's been going on the planet for 2.75 billion years, maybe longer.
I'm thinking, you mentioned Saul Alinsky earlier, and his role for radicals. He dedicated that book to Lucifer.
Yeah, but that's all bullshit. All this bullshit. Well, because it gets this reaction. Okay, so again, the way in which resentfuls work, the anti-humanists work, is they want you in a constant place of disgust. Because when somebody's in a place of disgust, they're controllable. They're in this easiest to manipulate space. So what do? You come up with all of these Satanist stuff and you get some low-level idiots that actually pursue it, etc. But it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all BS. And it's specifically designed to get people into a place of disgust. So they're paying attention to all this complex Satanist arcanum, and they're not looking at what the person's actually doing in the real world right now in front of us, using the legal system, financial system, social networks, etc. We're chasing down all of this ritual symbol stuff, and we're not looking at, well, this motherfucker just filed a lawsuit over here against this, and that's backed by this person, and that's the fight that we have to pay attention to. That's the one. I can't, even if it was true they were Satanists, etc. What am I going to do? Destroy Satan, go into 7th level of Hades, and I've got to fight the person in the world who's using the infrastructure and systems that I have available to me to fight war against me.
How do you suggest that is the best way to do that?
Great. That's actually a wonderful question. I wrote a book here, just published it recently this week, called The Modern Knight's Guidebook. People need to understand the 7 elements of power: diplomacy, information, martial, military, economics, finance, intelligence, and law enforcement. 7 elements of power. Law enforcement should be legal. People need to understand that these 7 domains are how everything works, and they're knowable. And they're complex individually and cross, the relationships and dependencies between them are ludicrously complex, but they're knowable. Everything functions and operates within those 7 elements of power. People need to understand them, and they need to communicate and work with people that understand one or more of those domains, elements, better than they do. Because whether it's a spiritual war or not, I'm not saying it's not. I can't. Who fights a spiritual war? You got to fight a war. Right? So understanding how the anti-humanists are using these 7 elements of power against the humanists, that's a thing that we can do. That's a thing that we can know, and a thing that we can know how to work with others to counter.
So do you support any, you said you like the fact that obviously we all want to get back to constitutionality rather than what we've had, but do you support any politicians or any political movements today? What do you think they're all just front men and they're really not
It's
accomplishing anything?
entertainment. It's all theater. It's just the same as the Satanist stuff. It's all distraction.
So you think the people have to do it? You're talking about people, so people
Yes.
rising up and fighting themselves.
No, well, yes, but all power is actually local.
Right.
And there are things that people can do locally. There's a reason they do so heavy a theater at the state and federal level, particularly the federal level. Probably $500 billion a year is put into the theater creation for the federal level. Why? Because we're all paying attention to an abstraction level, one that doesn't have any real power, and two, we can't do anything about. Whereas while we're doing that, we're not paying attention to our city council. We're not paying attention to our local school board. We're not paying attention to who the hell's the sheriff and what's his obligation. Who's he really connected to? We're not paying attention to how local oligarchs are, using the government and law to take land and do the rentier, rent seeking. All of that stuff we can deal with at the local level. And you deal with enough of that at the local level, and all those higher level things don't have, the wealth, the power, the control, etc., and they don't happen. But that's why they split so much money and effort into focusing us on the theater that is the federal government and federal politics.
So do you get the sense we're heading in the right direction? You mentioned the courts. Do you think that our side is going to win this war? How are things looking to you?
Yeah, another great question. One thing, so the things that can be done by the quote unquote princes and their people at the federal level are happening. Now, how that's exactly going to go and whether it's going to sustain long enough over the decades to, keep that available to the people, I don't know. But what I'm not seeing is the similar activity at the state level. And I'm sure as hell not seeing it at the county and municipal level. And so that doesn't give me great confidence. Yeah. Like I'm here in Idaho, and we just had a shooting up here in northern Idaho where some crazy, we don't know who it really was, to be quite frank, shot some firefighters. And then we come find out the sheriff's not from here. I think he's from California. I'm from California, so I don't want to pick on all Californians, but he's from California and he's connected to the Mossad on his page, publicly. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is, again, not to put it on the Jews, because the Mossad is the CIA MI6. That's all one entity. Right. Same with German intelligence, the BDU, that was Galen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So, if we take the example of what's happening at the federal level and start applying it at the states and county and municipal levels, then yes, we have a chance. We have now we're going to have to fight some stuff out. We're going to have to get rid of tens of millions, maybe 70 million people from our country alone, probably more.
Who are the people that we'll be getting rid of?
All the people that are brought in here against the will of the American people, and a lot of the legal immigrants that came in, but who were bad actors connected to bad actor organizations and institutions, funding, etc.
Well, I definitely agree with that. Do you think that's going on? Because something even on that where this is Trump's, his signature issue, you can't tell the truth there because both sides have a reason to lie about it. But both sides, I think, are claiming more people are being deported than are. I don't see any evidence of a mass deportation. What do you think is going on?
I think, give me a second. I think the federal administration is doing everything it can to signal to the people that we do take this serious, but they have serious limitations on what they can do, again, because the executive powers have not fully been, constitutional executive powers have not been fully restored to the president. And you still have judges, these lower court judges coming out with all these injunctions, et cetera. And then you got state judges and sanctuary cities and counties. And so the order of priority of work is you have to take World War III off the table first. has to happen. And that's happening. While you're doing that, you're setting up what is the next phase of the operation. The next phase of the operation is reducing the possibility of civil war. That's mass deportations.
That's a real possibility.
Right? So orders of priority, right? So first order of priority, you've got to remove World War III because that's the biggest threat, because that goes a nuke fast. Okay. The second order of priority is you have to reduce, you're probably not going to remove, but you have to reduce the capacity for civil war, right? To wage civil war. While you're doing all that, you also have to work on the most fundamental problem, which is what's driving all of it, and that is the economic imbalance, right? So you're going to have massive asset deflation so people can afford, Americans can afford things again, and you're going to need to have commodity inflation so that you're the United States of America has immense natural resources that, the asset side of the ledger, all we ever see is the liability side, the national debt. But we have national assets, if they were right priced, market-based pricing and not manipulated-based pricing, far in excess of $37 trillion. And so you have to, and you got to be careful because you don't want to collapse the system and crush the system. And you've got all the boomers retiring out, and they need their retirements. And you don't want to destroy those. And you don't want to provide your enemies the ability to create we've been in a formal economic depression since 2012, but we've been holding on as tight as we can, maybe 2011. But point being is you don't want to completely crash or destroy the economy. So you've got to take this in stages and steps as well. So those are the three things that have to happen. But again, the first one you have to do is take World War III off the table, because that's nuclear war. And everybody dies.
I'll definitely agree there. What do you see an inevitability with the universal basic income? Because it seems to me, I don't know how you can avoid it, because there's not enough jobs for people. You don't think so?
I think it's no.
And with AI, with all AI taking so many jobs,
AI is BS. Quantum computing's BS. All that stuff's BS. Doesn't exist. I did my doctoral studies in computational engineering. We don't have LA or AI. We haven't clever linguistic systems, and they're not so clever for anybody who has half a brain and has read complex books. So, no, I'm not worried about any of that at all. What I am worried about is the fact that we have roughly 100 million people that shouldn't be here, and probably at least 20 million of them will fight, or they'll just make it where you have to physically, violently remove them.
And maybe how many millions of Americans will want to fight with them? Because that's the problem. You got so many people here who they don't want anybody deported.
You only need 1 to 3%. You only need 1 to 3% willing and capable to commit physical violence to change a system, to completely control the system. And we got more than 1 to 3%.
Well, you're saying things that nobody else is saying. I'll tell you that. But in terms of AI, though, I see and I wrote about this recently, in a recent episode of South Park, which I used to love the show. But they've really been going after Trump. But I'm a Trump agnostic. I don't care about that. But I've never seen anything like that. They used, and it looked exactly like the real Trump, walking in the desert, and then he takes off all his clothes, and they focus on his micro penis. It looked completely real. Wasn't any cartoon aspect to it. So what was that if it wasn't AI?
It's entertainment. Here's the thing. The only jobs, what the hell is AI going to do? First off, it's ludicrously stupid. The only thing AI is good at is rote work. So what does it mean? The only jobs that AI is going to displace are made up jobs anyways.
So you don't believe, because I hear so many people saying they've already got AI that has much higher IQ than anybody on Earth, and they may develop something where it'd be thousands. You don't think that's possible?
Not even close. No, because we're actually not even on the right path to developing such kind of AI. Now, there's some interesting things happening with a doctor who I never remember his name, technology guy up at MIT. He's working on micro robotics and swarm intelligence. And that's the right pathway, because that's actually how intelligence works in multicellular systems. But we're ludicrously far from it, and his work's being suppressed. We don't have quantum computing either. We put probably $3 trillion a year into the illusion of AI and quantum computing.
Is this just to make people think that we have more technology than we have, or to fear porn? What is it for?
Correct.
To get people to fear that.
Correct. This goes all the way back to what used to be called hydraulic despotism. It still is actually in parts of the world. And that is, we have to think about the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh retained his power because he knew, he had control over the flooding of the Nile. And if it flood is because, the Pharaoh was happy with his people and the gods were happy with the Pharaoh. And if the flooding didn't happen, it's because the Pharaoh was unhappy with his people because they were doing this, this, or this. And they needed to do this, this, or this to regain the love and care of the Pharaoh, who then return back on the love and favor of the gods. This is as old as time. How much money for thousands of years do you think these regimes have put in to maintain the illusion that they have control over these things? I'm going to give you a prime example. We've been talking global. Well, when you and I were younger, we were going into global cooling, right? The next ice age. And then it went to global warming. Okay. Turns out that global cooling was actually right, data-wise, right? And Milankovitch cycle and everything else right. Well, you want to know how I know how BS no, it's not a woman, it's a man.
Okay. I wonder if that's okay.
Yeah. And maybe Danielle is as well. Cool, but that's not. I've heard the guy speak before. Give me a second. How I know that we are coming into the end of our interglacial period is the British government recently put out that they have been investing in sun blotting technologies to reduce the temperature of the Earth. They don't have that technology. What they know is that the Milankovitch cycle is at the point to where we're now at the end of the interglacial period is where we're coming to, and they need us to believe that they have such powers to blot out the sun.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, certainly they want you to think they have more power than they have, and it also works in terms of fear porn.
If you've got valuations in tech companies that are somewhere like $100 trillion, you'd spend $3-4 trillion a year in creating the illusion that those are real. You'd spend a lot more than that.
It makes sense. There's no question about that. So where do you see, because we only got a couple minutes here, where do you what do you see happening in the next couple of years? Are you optimistic, or what do you see happening here?
Oof. I will be one of those rare, honest people in that I don't know exactly what's going to happen, because we're in back and forth, move, counter move. What I can say, though, is that we're pretty much now all in. The anti-humanists are all in. They just killed Charlie Kirk using a game and some crazy kids, right? So they're all in. I'm not sure that the responsibles are all in yet. I think we still have too much confidence and faith in the system, and the system's dead. It's gone. It's been dead and gone for years. And I don't think they want to admit what's necessary to come on the other side. So I don't know what actually happens in the next couple of years. What I do know is, what I can say, at least with great confidence, is I don't think we get through this fight till at least the mid part, if not the end of the next decade.
Give anything you want to close with, and give out any links or anything you want to do to promote whatever you want to promote.
No, I'm just grateful for the conversation. We never had a chance to speak before, and people can go to ianburlingame.substack.com. I've got a number of books that go into these things in great detail on Amazon. You can look for me, Ian Burlingame, and then I, have a few beers every once in a while, or some scotch or wine, and every once in a while go on a rant on Twitter, so I can go out and yell in the public square.
It's to look forward to. Well, and again, you definitely have a unique perspective. I don't know anybody else that's saying this. So so follow him on Substack and follow him on X, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate it. If I can leave one thing, right?
Sure.
Let's not underestimate humanity and humanity's capacities to win, because we're all still here and we all still have the comforts and the lives that we have, despite everything that's been tried for thousands and thousands of years. So let's not write us off yet.
We don't want to do that. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Take care.
Yep.
Good. Thank you, Ian Burlingham. Okay, everyone. Thank you for that. Not exactly what I expected. I was trying to, just something completely different. His philosophy is definitely different. I'm not saying it's just unique, but I was having a little trouble understanding it at some point. So I hope my new microphone sounds okay. Tony Arterburn was generous enough to get me a very nice new microphone. It should sound much better. So I hope I don't hear more complaints about people not being able to hear me. And we started something last week with bringing people on the show, kind of video call format. I think what we're going to do, I think we'll just take you one at a time. So I want it to be like video calls, because I can't take calls. So there's the link in the chat there under my name and Tony's both. So anybody that wants to jump on the link and come in, and we'll take you one by one. I'd love to hear from as many of you as possible. So we're looking over in the Rumble chat. I'm looking over there. Have the audio is good. Don Tony's the man. Does sound good. It should be. I would say, near the end, EM was definitely making sense in terms of them saying they have something that they don't have. That makes perfect sense to me. I think that, and that would even go into, I'm sure he wouldn't agree with that, but it would go into, I think, the space program and, making you think they did these fantastic things that I don't think, I don't think that was, obviously was possible. Anybody that doubts that, read Dave McGowan's Wagging the Moon Doggy. That's the word. So lots of people in the chat. Not everybody I normally see. I could see Kat Goya here, Ellen Rundell, Houston, Don Lambert. Good to see you. Like I said, Ron Hilton, Kenneth Powers, or Kenny Effin Powers. I guess that's it. So Peter Seacosh. Good to see, and Chris Grace, both the two greatest researchers on Earth here in the same chat room. How cool is that? Jonathan Gibson. Jacob, good to see you, Jacob. Robin Lee, good to see you. Robin Lee, we are on YouTube. I don't know why you couldn't, they haven't suspended me again yet, so you should be able to see it on YouTube. I'm glad to see you on X. Baxter Black 6467. Good to have you here. Jeff Adams. Some names I don't see all the time, so that's good. Pat the Plumber. GBGN1. Okay. Just going back here. Of course, Deborah Wheeler, who I saw earlier. Bunny Op YT. Abid Maruf, who said, I don't know what happened to Abid. He said, hello there. Okay, I'm leaving. You're not responding at all. Abid, I wasn't talking to the chat room. I assumed you're talking to me. So I hope you're still out there listening and come on back in. I'm not going to have a conversation with you necessarily in the middle of a guest unless you're asking a question for the guest. NMQ8HM. Good to see you. Varan Saw. And there's Piper Fogel, who suggested EM Burlingame. It was her idea, so blame her, credit her. Okay. I'm glad you like the discussion, Piper. And again, so nobody's jumping on the chat yet. So I hope this doesn't need to be a 1 week phenomenon. I'd like to do this every week. Ideally, I'd like to have, unless it's really somebody maybe we can definitely talk to for 2 hours. I'd like to have the second hour of the show just to talk with you guys. So, I love your questions from the chat, but it's really cool to be able to take it up a notch and especially see. I'd love to see. Last week I got to see a couple people that I just know as names. So that would be really cool. So good to see you over in, if you're in the Rumble chat, good to see you. You know what? I'm going to put the link over in the Rumble chat as well. You got to get used to having this microphone. There you go. Okay, so I put the StreamYard link in the Rumble chat as well. So you too, if you're in Rumble, you can come over for a video call as well. Deborah Wheeler is still requesting David Duke. We'll see what I can do. Paul Craig Roberts, I probably could get him back. He's been publishing a lot of my stuff. He didn't publish the one I wrote about Charlie Kirk. It's my latest Substack. I hope you all read it. And it may come close to broking. I think I wrote one about Jewish supremacy fatigue syndrome or something. That's my all-time high in terms of likes, comments, and restacks. This one's probably going to be second, getting close to that. And that's without him publishing it. He didn't publish it. And so he has been publishing a lot of my stuff. But so, yeah, I can try that. Again, he's certainly an interesting guy. He might be more willing to come on now that he's published more of my stuff. So certainly the Charlie Kirk assassination thing is, Piper says his perspective is that of war. It really is. I mean, I was talking to, what was that? One of the 300 or whatever. I'm just picturing a gladiator or something. So he obviously still has some of the Green Beret in him, the special forces. And obviously that, you got to be a man's man doing that. He asked me if I'd been in the military. I'm just laughing, come on. I would have been a Charles Dodger. So luckily I didn't have to dodge the trap, but I would have. I'm no military guy. Again, looking here. But, so the and we'll be talking more about the Charlie Kirk thing. But I mean, I just I don't I don't really like confrontation with guests. I'm just trying to have a conversation. But I was I find the official story of the Kirk assassination to be absolutely ridiculous, as I find the official story of everything to be ridiculous. So I don't for a second believe it was some guy motivated by games or something. And I think if you read the Peter Seacosh is on there, Peter Seacosh has been talking a lot about this stuff, but the text messages between him and his transsexual boyfriend or whatever, I mean, really bad writing. I mean, so ridiculous. I mean, they don't even attempt to sound like the text messages of real young people. Absolutely ridiculous. Read them and see them. Most people have criticized that. And then, of course, the logistics of it, the story that they made, that he got a weapon and disassembled it and then assembled it, and made his shot, and then jumped. And it was quite a jump. If you saw that, how far he jumped, I don't care if he was 22 or not. That's hard to survive that unless maybe you're a stunt double or something without some kind of breaking something. And but he did. Got up and walked away with his disassembled rifle in his pants, and then somehow had a box. I didn't see a box anywhere. Where was the box? And the box had to be pretty big to contain the rifle, in a blanket. Didn't see the blanket anywhere. So he walks off with the box and the blanket and puts the rifle, the assembled rifle, because he reassembles it again, puts it in the box and then wraps it up in the blanket where it can be found in the woods. I mean, does that story make any sense at all? Why would you do that? Why keep taking the rifle apart and putting it back together? Again, it makes no sense at all. Okay, Robin Lee is switched over to Rebel. Okay, so here I thought it'd be fine with the video calls. So okay, so if we don't have any calls, then we may scrap this experiment. But I thought it was very cool because I don't know if Free World FM is ever gonna fly or not. I know they've been having lots of trouble with it, but I was really looking forward to having that and being able to take phone calls, because those of you who've been with me long enough know back in my TFR, the Truth Frequency Radio days, when I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty was my theme song, and the guy over there didn't worry about copyright rates or anything like that being sued, that we took phone calls. Chris Graves, of course. Who better to add to the chat? Well, Chris, it says your device is not connected. Now he's gone. Chris, I would love to have you on, but it says your device is not connected. And now you've disappeared. So hopefully we'll be back in here. News denier says the story makes no sense. No, absolutely. That's why I just I'm polite to everyone, but I think when you buy that kind of story, I'm not sure what you're fighting if you buy that kind of story. So it's, it has, and then you have Cash Patel. Already enough saying the other day that Epstein didn't traffic any women, so now he didn't traffic it. So he did nothing, I guess. I guess he was, just a really cool guy, and he killed himself because we tortured. And what did they convict Ghislaine Maxwell of then? If he didn't traffic any women, what was she convicted for? Free Ghislaine Maxwell. But Cash Patel comes out the other day and says that this guy Robinson, the alleged shooter, had a manifesto, of course, and they all have manifestos. We know that. But it was destroyed. Who destroyed it? Why? If you have a manifesto, why would you destroy it? But they somehow they have digital evidence or something. So, whatever that means. So, but that's Cash Patel. That's the FBI guy. Matthew Burns says, Don, brother, you're my friend. Hey, good to see you. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for being here. I value everyone here. And again, if anybody wants to come in, Chris tried, but we'd love to have. I think it was great seeing getting more to know a little bit more about a couple of you last week. So I'd like to get to know more of you as well, especially the people that are here all the time. I like to, you guys know all about me, that's for sure. So I'm pretty much an open book. So I like to know who's showing up here every Friday. I appreciate it that people are saying it's time for I protest and they're showing. It's very cool. Okay. But so that seems to be the. And then of course the other story is Jimmy Kimmel. We talked about a little bit, but again, I don't. Matthew said it's clearly shot by Trump and Netanyahu. Well, I think again, and that's why I said the EM, obviously wanted to stay away from Israel. And I don't want to concentrate on Israel all the time, but I mean, in this case, there you have Candace Owens directly saying it. You have Tucker Carlson saying that he was threatened and was scared of Israel. He had changed, and he just was very moderate. He certainly wasn't being controversial at all, but he was talking about, hey, maybe we shouldn't just blindly support Israel. Maybe they can be wrong too. Apparently, that's too much. And he apparently was in the White House with Trump, who of course loved him, was very close to him allegedly, but he supposedly advised him, hey, don't bomb Iran. That's not a good idea. And what happened? Apparently, Trump got into a real shouting match with him and got all upset at him. So clearly, he was at odds to some degree with this neocon mindset that runs the Republican parties. And now we see, what I don't like is what is happening in the wake of his assassination. The left was bad enough with, dancing on his grave, pissing on his grave, whatever you want to call it, just, showing no respect at all. It's just ridiculous. It's immoral in a way to act that way, but they were doing it. They're acting gleefully. Good to see you, Sam's Bar. Thank you, brother. He says he watches a lot, just doesn't comment. Good. And but the right's reaction bothers me more because they're trying to make basically a George Floyd out of Charlie Kirk. I mean, very many parallels here. And I'm not suggesting Charlie Kirk is like George Floyd. George Floyd was a career criminal. But the left blew his death out of proportion, pretty much mischaracterized it. And the idea that if Biden had been president when I think you may have had a lowering of the flag at half staff for George Floyd. I don't have any doubt about that. And lowering the flag to half staff for Charlie Kirk, pretty much over the top. This is a conservative figure that was known mostly on the internet. I just think that's out of all proportion to who he was and what his impact was. Now, it's maybe not as bad as when they lowered the flag at half staff for Whitney Houston that Obama did. But I just think we've lowered the bar a lot there. And I think that's way over the top. And now, Mark Dice wants every college to name a building after Charlie Kirk. And I just, and it's like anybody that shows any disrespect for him is considered suspect. And they're talking about revoking passports. And, now, so the Jimmy Kimmel thing, I'm the last person that would defend Jimmy Kimmel. He's a horrible clown for the state. He's a deep jester for the deep state. And you know, he's obviously just him and Colbert was fired, and uh, Seth Meyers, and to a lesser degree, Jimmy Fallon. They're all basically Democratic Party propagandists. They're representatives of that. So they're just spouting a stupid line, the same kind of nonsense you see on Saturday Night Live that passes for comedy, and now apparently South Park. But the idea that you can get somebody fired for no matter how dumb he said, what he said was not really much dumber than what all of them say all the time. Or was it offensive? Yeah, but then you give them the weapon to say they were offended by something in the future that maybe somebody who was telling truth said. So I just think it's a very slippery slope. I don't like it. And Trump, they're not. It's just shows the right and doesn't like free speech any more than the left. And usually it's because of Israel, and they don't want any so-called anti-Semites to have free speech. And obviously, you either have free speech or you don't. So you have to defend free speech for everyone, and that even Jimmy Kimmel has free speech. So you have to. I don't. Yeah, I can and yeah, it's kind of hilarious when Trump says he was canceled for bad ratings, but that's first of all, president shouldn't even get involved with that. So, but obviously this president is going to. But I think it just becomes a charade, and it's nice to see the left talking about free speech now. We don't think no, we don't I don't believe in it, but I just think it's not a good time for that. Darth May Locke. Okay. Don, did you notice how earlier in the week the lying media tried to say that Robinson killed for love? Them trying to establish a narrative on love. F off to these idiots. Yeah, of course. I mean, so is he killed for the love, I guess, of his transgender loves, I guess. Okay, we got Tony Lightning. Cool. Let's get you in here. Tony, how you doing? For the love, I guess, of his transgender loves, I guess. Okay, we got Tony. How are you, Tony? Cool. Get you in here. Tony, you might want to turn down the.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing?
Hello?
Yeah, how are you? Can you hear me? Yeah, turn down your volume. Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing?
Hold on just a sec.
Yeah, that's what the radio is. Okay, now can you hear me?
Looks like there's a delay.
Yeah, now can you hear me? You should be able to hear me now.
Nope.
Can you hear me? Tony?
Now I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Okay. Make sure your speaker set.
Sorry.
No problem. Now? Can you hear me now?
Mm,
I guess not.
sorry. Oh, now I can hear me.
Okay, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear me.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? There's
No,
a delay.
there's a delay, yeah. So you can't. All right, well, try to get. I'm going to bring Chris on. We'll keep you up here. Try to check your speaker, okay?
I can't hear you.
Oh, Chris disappeared again. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, can you try to check it should be your speakers. Matthew Burns says, yes, the Epstein files were going to be denied release on the exact same day. That's exactly right. And, I was at the 9/11 conference last week, covering it through American Free Press. Got to meet my hero, Dennis Kucinich. Very cool stuff. I'll be posting pictures online of that. But Kirk was shot the day before. Tucker Carlson was supposed to be the keynote speaker, and understandably, he shied away. He had fears for his safety. So Piper Fogel says Jimmy was glorifying murder in that story. Well, of course, it's not right. I agree. I agree with that, Piper. But it's a slippery slope because it's the left does this all the time, and is that a crime? I don't know, what would the crime be? Disrespect? I just think it's a slippery slope. I just really do, and I think the right. If you're going to stand up for free speech, you got to stand up for all free speech. As long as you're not advocating, somebody do something to somebody. Tony, I love having you here. It's good seeing you, brother, but you can't hear me for some reason. Can you try to set your mic? I hear myself. I think because you're listening to the.
It seems like. Oh wait.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah. Now I can't hear you because you muted yourself. These video calls are in their infancy, people. We're just starting this thing.
How about now?
Okay. I can hear you. Can you hear me? You need to stop. You're listening to the show. Press stop on the show. I guess pause it or something. I think that's why it's interfering with me. I think. I hear myself. See?
Okay.
All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right there. Okay, good. Yeah, keep your mic muted while you work on that. Chris Graves has been in twice, and both times it kicked you. I didn't kick you out, Chris. I'm not sure. It must be your whatever you got going on there. It's not letting you stay in. It said device not connected. Now it says Tony's device not connected. Well, hopefully I get to talk to somebody. You know, the rest of you, please come join the party. Okay, we're looking over the Rumble. See, we have Dustin D. Helm and TK2 Beyond, Knights of the Storm, of course, Opossum King. A lot more people on YouTube. Deborah Willis says, "How about Chris Bogan, the fan favorite?" He's not in the chat today, and I think if he had been in the chat, he would have made us aware of that EM was not directing his ire at the right people. All right, let's not try Tony now. All right, Tony, how about now? Can you hear me? I'm still hearing the show, Tony. You need
Hello?
to. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello. You need to pause the show.
I just muted it.
Okay, you muted. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
It seems there's a crazy delay.
There is. Well, once because my question would be, go ahead and talk about whatever you want to talk about. That should come on in a
I
second.
can only hear you on my TV. I can't hear you on my phone.
Okay, did you just hear me? Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to ask who that guy was.
Okay, that's good. E.M. Burlingame is
Who was your guest?
his name was E.M. Burlingame, and he was a former Green Beret, and Piper Fogel suggested him as a guest, and he very unusual. I'll give you that. He has a unique philosophy where he's like a warrior, and I really didn't understand everything he was saying. He has names for things, the responsibles and things like that, and but obviously he writes prolifically for Substack. He's a good writer. He writes like a novelist because he wrote a novel, and that's all I can tell you about him. I mean, he's you heard what he was saying, and I think it's definitely a unique voice in the alt media because most of us don't feel that way about it anyhow. Tony, I thank you for being on. I'm sorry we couldn't get you hooked up, so nobody else coming on. I'd love to have you guys come on. And if you don't want to come on camera, you can come on audio. It can be just like a phone call where you just you come on and you disable your camera. Okay, there's Tony Lightning again. Let's try it now. How about now, Tony? Can you hear now? Let's try it now. Can you hear me?
Is it working?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, brother. We got it's just not working. So anyhow, the rest of you guys, again, if you're shy and you don't want to appear on camera, that's fine. But just come on. It's just like, it's just like calling into the show. We'll just hear your voice. But that would be cool. But again, I just, I like talking to you guys. So would love to see more people here. And this is a lot of people told me they like this idea and it seemed to work well last week. So I'm a little surprised we don't have more people doing it. So if, I guess I'll scrap it. It's well, we have Tony Lightning again. How about now, Tony? Yeah, I think we just better forget it, brother. Thanks anyhow. I appreciate it. I appreciate you trying. I don't know what's going on.
I'm trying.
You're trying. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks anyhow. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. All right. So Tony has tried several times. Now, who else can try? Let's see, Twisted Pistol, good to see you. Tony, tell us how to sell Liberty Medical. Okay, that was pretty funny, I guess. I'm not sure how much of the audience knows what you're talking about there, but Rogue One, good questions to extract the answers for those who are just coming to the great game. Thank you both. Yeah, I mean, it's just, we're, nobody has monopoly concerns. I don't claim to know everything. And certainly, I just think the important thing that we have to remember is that we're being lied to all the time. Nobody's telling us the truth. And that's why I'm amazed that anybody would believe, especially as big a deal as the Charlie Kirk assassination has been made. I mean, I think it's been blown out of all proportion. A tragic event, certainly, but Charlie Kirk, Alex Jones, maybe Alex Jones is the biggest figure in the conspiracy world, whatever you think of him. I don't think Charlie Kirk was that big as Alex Jones or something. He was certainly a very prominent figure, but I was really shocked about the attention that this has received and the way the right is responding to it. It's basically their and his wife again. I'm sorry, when I saw her speech and her standing in the coffin, everything was very and had very elements that were questionable. And again, I'm not questioning anyone's grief, but it struck me very strangely, and the idea that she kept referring to him as a martyr, and I think that's, I don't know. You want to make I don't know. Would he have wanted to be a martyr? I don't know, and I don't know what's coming out of this. But I hope that what we're seeing, and again, the Jimmy Kimmel thing. Again, I don't like Jimmy Kimmel, and I certainly would have never watched a second of his show. He's ridiculous. But I don't think that. I hope what comes out of this is not a crackdown on people who are perceived to be disloyal to the memory of Charlie Kirk or something. Because again, you don't want crackdown on speech. And it's the same kind of thing back if the left had tried to. I mean, the thing is, the right is different than the left. So you didn't have a bunch of people making fun of George Floyd and celebrating his death and so forth, even though, again, the guy's a criminal. But if they had, would the left, would they have to say, well, maybe we need to revoke the passports of people who are disrespecting George Floyd? I just think, I don't think disrespect is a crime. It sounds like, ghetto culture, this disrespect stuff. I think you have the right to disrespect. I think you have the right to hate. It's a human emotion. And I just think we need to stop trying to curtail speech and deal with it. If you don't like it, then okay, go to something else. I get offended by a lot of stuff. Berlin Hilton seems to agree with me. Yeah, definitely. Again, I just think it's ridiculous to try. And I think that is triggering even more on the left that they are making this moral thing going on. Is Kirk technically an ally of the real dissident movement in America? Kirk helped get this regime into power. Twisted Pistol says, yeah. The only thing I said, I think he was turning on Israel. That's what I was trying to say to you. Yeah, there's video of him out there saying it, and Harrison Smith over at InfoWars, who had me on his show once, and he talked about that Charlie feared. This is a month before he died. That Charlie feared Israelis might do something to him. So what was he talking about? How did he know? But Kirk Floyd, Twisted Pistol. So, yeah, I mean, it's again, I mean no disrespect to anybody, and but there are elements of this don't make any sense. As I talked about, as somebody who's an old assassination guy, started with the JFK assassination, investigating that a long time ago. The trajectory makes no sense. They claim this guy was on a rooftop that was slightly off to the left of Charlie Kirk. If he struck him in the left side of the neck, it would have exited out the right side and would have blown Charlie Kirk back to the right. That didn't happen. Charlie Kirk, first of all, we won't see an exit wound anywhere. They haven't been able to talk about exit wound. Exit wound should have been, and as I'm no expert on guns, but I understand these Mausers just, should have done a lot more damage. Let's put it that way. Didn't look like it that way, and he fell towards the direction, much like JFK did, supposedly. His head went back towards Oswald, we're told. So you just look at basic laws of physics, and no one's talking about that. And I tried to do that in my Substack. I think it's why so many people are reading it, because I'm interested in evidence. I don't care about emotion and all this stuff. Evidence is what I'm interested in. Sam's Bar said, yeah, exactly. It reminded me of JFK. Well, in terms of the ballistics, it does. Twisted Pistol said he was calling out the left and traded on Bibi. He was saying Bibi had bad advisors. He wasn't going full Chris Buchan. Not even. Well, no, he wasn't going full, but he did talk about, and again, baby steps. But apparently, this is too much for some people. And Candace Owens, and again, I have my problems with Candace Owens. I'm not sure about her at all, but she's at some points is a female Chris Buchan. She came out raging, and she's named this guy, I think his name's Ackman or something, and she claims this guy particularly threatened Charlie Kirk at a dinner where she was at. Now, this guy's come out and said, no, he didn't. And all these other people from Turning Point USA have come out and agreed with him. Ackman, I find that kind of strange. Why would Candace Owens? And I think she claims maybe there was recording, so hopefully there is. And we'll find out who's lying. But if I had to put my money on high-ranking Zionist or Candace Owens, I'm gonna believe her. Yes, White Wolf, Candace Owens, and well, she might not be a total shill if she's saying this, but Matthew Burns says we're never gonna get the files, Congress. Exactly, and the fact this happened on the day that there was supposed to be the vote, and once again, he couldn't round up. Massey couldn't get 4 Republicans, I guess. I mean, that's just disgraceful. I mean, what does that say that, and this is the party Trump can't control when he supposedly wants to do something good. But when he wants to not release the Epstein files, they jump right in behind him. He's got complete control. Jeannie Pools, yes, exactly right. Candace said there was like a turning point event at the Hamptons. It was like an intervention to stop Charlie from speaking. Well, that's the way she describes it. Is she lying? Okay, maybe White Wolf thinks she is. But, but I've heard other video of him talking, and he does say that, he talked about all the text messages he's gotten, the threats and everything, and these are the recordings of him. So I don't know how else you can take it, but I think he was coming around a little bit in Israel to whatever small degree. Twisted Pistols said Trump let it happen. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think Trump's going to go against it. Although lately now we're hearing Trump was saying BB effed me or something like that. That's the new thing they claim Trump was heard saying. I don't know if he really said that or not, but that's what the story is. Anything with Trump to believe anything. Matthew Barron says, "Don't let a good crisis go to waste." No, absolutely not. Ron says he watched Kirk when he showed support. Oh yeah, definitely. He was a total Zionist. There's no question about it. And but he was killed, we think. And again, you have the people, and I did a show with RB Ham last Saturday on the Beyond the Pale. He's got a great podcast there. It's over on Rumble, his Rumble channel, Beyond the Pale, and I'm on there a lot. I'm going to be on there again tomorrow night, and I'm sure we'll talk about this again. But there's a lot of rabbit hole elements to this. Let's face it. Why wasn't there an ambulance there? Why wasn't there EMT people there? Why was Charlie Kirk kind of whisked off and thrown in the back of an SUV? Does that sound like standard procedure? Not to me, it doesn't. What says it looks so fake and gay? Well, that's Twisted Pistols. Your opinion on who benefits more, Israel or the regime in D.C. from cursing? I don't know that anybody benefits. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what power he had. He was going around to colleges debating college students for the most part. That's what I knew him from. And Turning Point USA was well funded by somebody and from Israel apparently. But we're told that earlier this year, and this is from many sources, that Netanyahu was pressuring him to take a lot more money. And but it was the idea that they would have more control over what he was over Turning Point USA, and he refused to do that. It was Chris Gray. Let's see if we can get Chris in here. Chris, you're muted, brother. How you doing? Chris, you're muted. And now it's been nothing burger with these video calls. I'd like to get some people in here. We're trying. Chris Graves keeps trying, but he can't get in. And Tony Lightning tried several times and couldn't hear me, and no one else has tried. So let's have some calls. Jeannie Poole says he was still behind the Zionist line, chosen people. Yes, he did. That's all he when he criticized Israel, he couched it in all the terms. I want Israel to win. I want, that kind of stuff. I'm not supporting Hamas. And he did everything, the right way, and it still didn't work. It was still too much. Twisted Pistol said it did a great show the other day. That must have been, you're talking about when I was on the BM show. Piper Vogel said Charlie also had a radio program. He did. Yes, he did. And he, I think Ben Shapiro was on his program, I believe, when they had a little bit of Ben Shapiro. He had a great look on his face when Charlie was just basically saying we shouldn't always support Israel. So Sam's Bar says, where's the guy they oppressed at pleading? I talked about him in my Substack. Read my Substack. The guy's name is George Zinn, and the claim is that he's another non-Irishman. And shockingly enough, in the middle of this, and they claim he was like a radical guy, was constantly getting arrested for disrupting things. And he claims to have been at 9/11. He claims to have called in a fake bomb threat right after the Boston bombing. So very interesting. But of course, and he kept saying, shoot me, or something. And of course, so what are you going to do with a guy that can't but let him go? It's what they did. Jeannie says he's not going to trash Kirk because he's making a difference. Exactly. I mean, there's so many people that aren't awake at all. The fact that he was saying those things are baby steps, but obviously, maybe if you believe, maybe that was enough to get him killed. I don't know. I don't know any other motive, because if I'm investigating this crime, if I'm Sherlock Holmes out there, my first suspect is going to be Israel, the leaders of Israel. Because that's the only thing I see that changed in his life, is that he appeared to have been, and he supposedly felt threatened by Israel. Several people said that. So, Twisted Pistol says, today we're all Jimmy Kimmel, not funny and not on TV. Well, some of us try to be funny. I don't think I'm funnier than Jimmy Kimmel. Who isn't? Matthew Burns said Ben Shapiro and the Judas J.D. Vance assume the voice of Charlie Kirk can take over his organs. Yeah, Ben Shapiro wants to. I know that. Twisted Pistol, who's the better father, Rampage Jackson or Tyler Robinson? Well, that's another one. Rampage Jackson, attack the sun. Come on. That got more. That was so. It was a wrestling event, and people were taking it seriously. It's ridiculous. Kid with a boyfriend, exactly. And again, the left is still claiming that this guy was MAGA. He had a transgender boyfriend, and he's saying kill all fascists. I mean, come on, I don't think so. White Wolf says Super Trump is telling Russia that chick there is not going to order us around regarding US. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Trump is all over the place. Whatever you want to think he's good again, he's just, it's impossible. And is that a true story? Did some people say Twisted Pistol that Robinson's dad didn't turn him in? Is that right? And who knows, man? They lie about everything. That could be part of the script. Roman Hilton said he immediately thought the transportation was well, he had an incel certainly written on him, I think. That's what I thought he was, but an angry incel. I don't know. Let me see what we have over here. Rumble. Nothing going on over there. Robin says, love the video calling. Please don't scrap it. Well, I love it too, Robin, but nobody's calling. I love it too. But I love the idea, but I'll keep trying to do it, but I don't think you can blame me for being a little disappointed here. We had a lot of people last week, and I don't know. We have a lot of people in the chat, so people that are listening, presumably, and you can, if you're not in the chat and you'd like to call in, you can look at the. I'm not going to give it. I just put it in the. I put it. You have to put it in the chat where you can click on it. There has to be a link you can click on to join it, but. Certainly, I would love to. I enjoy, talking to people. I'm interested in anybody who's listening to me or reading me. Helen Rendell says, saw the whole Dixie Chicks things go down at the same time. Yeah, I mean, that's the. I remember the Dixie Chicks, and again, I'd listen to their music until that song was it Earl's song or Song for Earl or something, which is a very catchy tune. they're glorifying dismembering a guy. He was apparently beat the woman, but I don't think that justifies his murder and dismembering him. And it's really Kalachi Jones here, and you're saying these awful things about Goodbye Earl, and that he's dead. That you killed him. It's ridiculous. But yeah, they made their comments against the, I guess the Iraq War or something, and yeah, they were pressured by the George W. Bush administration. So it's not like this censorship thing is a left-wing thing totally. Obviously, certainly, especially when you talk out against the war on terror and things like that, you're certainly not going to, you're going to be putting yourself up to possibly be censored. Twisted Pestle said he's speculating Robinson's dad read your books. Yeah, maybe so. That'd be nice to know. Although I don't know why they might try to wrangle me into it or something. Kirk was speaking for anti-war amongst the military-industrial complex. Was he? Well, yeah, I guess he was. He was saying not to bomb Iran. So I guess that's if you go against any war, you're anti-war in this pro-war environment we have. But yeah, so it's I don't think that I just don't think we can let our biases, because certainly, people like all those horrible people on TikTok, and they're awful people that are glorifying it, and most of them are crazy and belong in mental institutions, but Ronald Reagan shut them all down, so we know where to put them now. But they need help, and the people that are just reprehensible deep state puppets like Jimmy Kimmel, these are terrible. But I think you could have taken any of those guys off the air for any of their monologues, because they all were basically politically biased, and they were just completely one-sided. But I just have a problem with getting the government involved with that. That's all. I don't. And I understand why the left is acting the way they're acting, because they don't want any sympathy for any figure on the right. And this is, they want to, this is they're emotionally invested in this. This is identity politics. They want to be the victims. They're virtue signaling. So they don't want Charlie Kirk to have this kind of sympathy, and that's what's happening. Matthew Burns says, no money and peace for you. Absolutely. That's why, I love Dennis Kucinich so much. When I met him last week, just a very nice guy. And he, when he was in Congress, he famously tried to introduce legislation to create a Department of Peace. No one else has ever tried to do that. So very cool. Piper Fogel says, did you know Kirk means church, specifically a Scottish church? I did not, Piper. No, I did not know that. And MQHM, they never interact with the YouTube chat. Who doesn't interact with the YouTube chat? I'm not sure who you mean. They certainly do. Maybe to a fault. I've had people criticize. Pay so much attention to the chat. I just, I like an interactive show. That's why I like the idea of having video calls. But again, apparently, despite Robin Lee, which she said, apparently it's not something you guys were that enraptured with, or I would be seeing some calls. Other than the two people that called, one of them we couldn't get him to hear him, and Chris Graves can't connect. So, at any rate, as I said, if you're asking questions, so I don't know why you don't call. And again, you can just be audio. You don't have to be video. So I'd love to see what all you guys look like. But hearing what your voices sound like is pretty cool too. Piper's, yeah, she made a typo. Yeah, do you know Kirk means church? Yeah, I realize that. I did not know that though. Jeannie said, okay, I'd do the call if I could figure out how to do it. I have a wish. Jeannie, all you have to do is click on I left the StreamYard link in the chat. Here, I'm going to put it in again for you right underneath here. Here you go. I'm dropping it in here again. So if you look below you in the chat, you see that link? You just click on that link and you come in just like a guest would. And yeah, we need people who have voices for radio. I'm not sure I have a voice for that. Some people tell me they like my voice, but it is kind of high pitched. It never really changed for whatever reason. I have some. I was always kind of trying to be a performer. When I got my first cassette recorder back in the golden age of America 1.0, I used to go in my basement and put on little performances where I'd do voices and little skits and stuff. And yeah, if you have them somewhere, if you listen to them now, my voice doesn't sound a whole lot different at age 12 as it does now. Jeannie says, I want to send you my first grade class picture from Fairview Elementary School, 1958, 1950. I'm also, oh, you're Mia Culper. I didn't know that. Wow. So you have a secret identity. Sure, send me your picture. I'd love to see it. You're older than me then. Or that Twisted Pistol says, is the Charlie Kirk psyop working or is it waking people up? Well, I think it's like any other psyop. It works on more people than it wakes up. Did the COVID psyop work? I mean, it woke up a lot of people, but I think it worked on more people. And that's the problem is it works on more people. So all the psyops do. And again, and just the fact that we can, that's why I wrote the Substack I wrote. I wanted to concentrate on the evidence. I treated it like the JFK assassination. Let's look at the ballistics. Let's look at and I'm not even talking about as I don't think there was even an autopsy, which I thought was illegal. I don't think you can do that in a shooting death, but I guess in this case, who knows? They're not releasing it. Matthew Burns says Donald marks the U.S. like a king when he goes over to England with King Charles. Yeah, well, it does. I'm sure he'll remember he famously he didn't do the protocol right with Queen Elizabeth or something, and that was kind of part of his charm. That he was this doofus that didn't have the right protocol, and these British, the royalty. I mean, that's why we had the War for Independence. So I don't know. So many people seem to love the royal family and get all excited when they're having babies and stuff. I don't really get it. There's RB Ham checking in from his semi. Checking on the road in northern Saskatchewan. RB Ham is just one of the. Chris tried. You tried 3 times, Chris. I don't know. It just kept saying device not connected. RB was one of the Canadian truckers up there, and he has I think he drives a truck 6 days a week, and his only day off is Saturday. Then he has this podcast that he has me on a lot, Beyond the Pale. So be sure to listen to that. I'm the link will be in my social media and his as well tomorrow night. Deborah says, please comment on Melania's outfit. Which outfit was that? I don't pay a lot of attention to it. Can you give me an idea what you're talking about? Did she wear something outlandish? I don't know. Melania, I'm not one to criticize Melania's looks. She was a supermodel. And there's Robin Lee. Well, I know Robin, so I know what she looks like, but it's good to see you. Hello,
Hey,
Robin. How are you?
This is just a test. I'm testing to see if it works.
Yes, it does. Of course it works. Yes. And so, see, people, I'll be seeing you pretty soon at the next Vince Agnelli lunch. I understand.
Right.
You're going to
So
be
anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say hi and just see if it works, and it works.
It does work. Well,
So
it's
don't
good to
get
see
rid
you.
of it. I wrote that. Please, keep it.
I
I
don't
like
want to
it.
get rid of it. I just feel like I'm kind of an idiot that,
Well,
I'm pleading for people to call in,
I think people just have to get used to it, but
They have to. It reminds me back when I used to have book signings. I had mostly book signings for the Unreals, my novel. I had a lot of them. And I would, it's a strange time when you're sitting at a table and you're waiting for people to walk up. And they just walk by, or they come up and pick the book up and leaf through it and then say, okay, thanks, and leave. It's a feeling of rejection, that's for sure.
well, if this works.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, the guy you had on before was kind of interesting. I was like raising my brow at some of the things he was saying. It seems
different.
He seems like he it kind of agrees with Trump or likes Trump or thinks the government is okay. And I'm thinking, what?
Yeah. I couldn't figure out what much of what very interesting though. He was definitely different, so that's why I couldn't really say too much either way. But no, he was nice, and I appreciate Piper's suggestion. And it's a different kind of guess. You never know what you're going to get, so it's always nice to hear different views.
Now it doesn't say anything on here about how to get out, so I might.
Oh, I can just hit remove here. I'll hit you.
Okay, Remove me, please.
Okay, thanks,
Bye.
Robin. See you soon.
It
Bye.
works.
Okay, that was nice, Robin. Jeannie Pool. Oh, Jeannie Pool's here. That's going to be nice. Okay, let's see, Jeannie. Jeannie Pool, you look great.
Uh,
Oh, you are on video. Okay.
I just got out the showers.
Well, I didn't see you when I said you look great. You weren't on the screen. It was just. It was
that
being
was
really. Well, you do look great. That's nice. It's nice to see you. My wife's name is Jeannie, and she spells it just like you with an E and no I. And what happened?
I'm back.
Okay. Well, it's nice to see you.
We have so many things in common with being Northern Virginia kids.
Oh, you're from Northern Virginia. Well, you said Fairview Elementary. Yeah, that's not. It wouldn't be my elementary school, but it's not that far.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you.
That's
So
what did you go to Oakton or where did you go to high school?
I went to Oakton, but it was the zoning. I should have gone to Falls Church High School, but our little neighborhood they sent to Oakton, and it wasn't busing really, but it was kind of like that. So I didn't like it very much, actually. I would have much rather gone to Falls Church.
Well, we used to be able to brag about being Fairfax County kids, but I think Fairfax County has gone downhill completely on education, along with Loudoun and Arlington and all the others.
Oh yeah, they all. I think we got people coming everywhere coming into that. That's great that we got. Well, that's nice. You're coming around better late than never. So how did you find me? Did you read my books first, or you just found my podcast, or how?
I'm trying to think. I've spent a long time. I've watched you. Gosh, it might have been through David Knight. It may have been Tony Arterburn somewhere there in. I don't know. I was going to say I was a Rush Limbaugh person before I knew who Rush Limbaugh was. And someone one day told me, going back to the 90s, maybe, they said, "You sound like Rush Limbaugh." And I was like, "Who's Rush Limbaugh?" And they went, "You have to listen." So I've been a conspiracy nut a long time. And I was 11 years old for JFK. And that's where the Charlie Kirk thing is. I will admit that I didn't get hit as much by when JFK came. I was 11 and sitting in my classroom at school. I was in 6th grade, and that was at Franconia Elementary for my last year.
Yeah.
And I had a Goldwater sticker on my notebook because I guess for campaigning, my mom worked for the Republicans.
My dad
And I
worked
remember,
Goldwater. Yeah.
And when it happened, I turned my notebook over because I felt really uncomfortable. Here they were telling us in class that they just shot JFK.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, so it was more of almost a thing. I had parents that were Republicans, so it was kind of, there wasn't a lot of positive Kennedy talk. But that with Charlie Kirk, I think just hearing that and seeing that, and I flashed back. I mean, that being 11 and the films that came out and everything, you really could not see what happened. They would talk you through, yes, look at what his head did. But with the Charlie Kirk thing, that was very real. I mean, that was and I don't even know why. I happened to have I had the TV on. I don't even know why. And it either came across on my computer or it came across on something. And I looked at it and I said to my husband, I said, someone just shot Charlie Kirk. And I really figured it was a thing. It was going to be another ear graze. And that was very quickly that came out.
Yeah, very different. Very different.
Yeah.
Well, are you still in Northern Virginia now?
No, I left probably in somewhere around 1990. My parents still were up there, and I would go back and forth a lot, go back and see friends from school. And, all my schooling was in Richmond and stuff. So I was generally in various places from Virginia all the way down to Florida and up and back and stuff like that. But now I'm in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. So you're far.
That's a difficult place. That's South Carolina.
Well, you can happen to bring White Wolf in here, okay? You can White Wolf, and well, actually, let me bring
Well,
RB
okay.
Ham in
Well,
first.
I'm going to go ahead and take off. I just want to see that if that would work. And now I'm going to
Oh,
go and blow
it works
dry my
great, and it's nice to see your lovely face. You look great. Thank
Oh
you.
well, my first grade picture is better, but I just saw that the
Okay.
other day, and it has all the kids. It was when they would do a whole block of everybody's little
Oh,
head
sure.
on it.
Yeah, they used to do that.
So
Yeah, sure.
I will have to figure out a way how I can send you a copy of that, because that's just a priceless little look at 1958, 59
Okay.
in our area. You know, you were a baby compared to me, but I
Yeah,
mean, still, we were within a
that's
few
great.
years of each other.
Well, it's great. My wife is named Jeannie, as I told you. She spells it
Yep.
the same way. So I dreamed of Jeannie all my life, and I married one.
Oh,
So there you go.
well, I was going to say, that's my middle name. I actually, with my first name, I have a different her first name, but the gene pool thing was just irresistible. Is
Well, you picked a good
everybody
name.
jump into the
Jeannie's
gene pool. So
Jeannie's a
anyway,
great name.
you guys have a
Thank you.
great evening. Thanks so much,
Okay.
Donna. Really enjoy. I
I
enjoy
enjoy it too.
listening to you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jeannie. I appreciate it. Bye. Okay, well, White Wolf, I'm going to bring RB first because RB is in the truck. RB, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
You see, there's RB at work, right? This is the Canadian trucker, guys. Help him out. Tell him where they can help you out. The Canadian government funded a bunch of money because he was part of the Canadian trucker program. And the guy's obviously working for a living and podcasting on Saturday nights only. So I really appreciate what you're doing, RB.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Just making sure you can hear me because I'm on the road. Yeah, I'll put in the description my Give, Send, Go after if anybody wants to help me out. They suspended my Give, Send, Go because people had stopped helping, had stopped sending donations. And after 3 months, they close out your account. So you have to get in touch with them and say, hey, I'm still here. So they got it. I got it back again. Some guy gave me a $5 donation or something 3 days ago. So 3 months, as long as I get a donation, at least once every 3 months, I can keep it going. But yeah, I just wanted to check in with you. Yeah, you're coming on my show tomorrow night, my podcast it's on Rumble.
Yes.
RB Ham Beyond the Pale. And tomorrow night is the return of Vienna Van Berkem, the tinfoil hat lady, your favorite conspiracy theorist.
Right, I'll be looking forward to that too. Drop that in the chat. Drop the link in the chat. Help RBI because I gotta bring White Wolf in because I've only got a couple minutes left here. Let me see, White Wolf. How you doing, White Wolf?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thanks,
Yes, we
RB.
can
I'm gonna
hear
let you. I'll see you tomorrow night, RB.
You betcha. Bye-bye.
Thank you, brother. Okay. Yes, White Wolf, I can hear you. You got a couple minutes. What's going on?
Okay, well, I just wanted to talk about World War III because we're sleepwalking into this thing.
Okay. Okay, so you're not buying what the guest said. The guest says we're dismantling everything, so there's not going to be a World War III, right?
Oh, they've been setting up World War III for a long time. Now, I probably don't have time to get into how World War I and World War II were all completely scripted. Right. I mean, all of the politicians were just puppets. The battles were being worked on behind the scenes by the Satanists, and the bloodshed and the killing was real, but they knew the outcome. It was all predetermined, and it was all. I mean, the purposes of World War II was, first of all, to usher in the global economy. And the second purpose was to create the American empire. And the third purpose was to destroy the family, get the woman out of the home and get her working. World War II had many purposes. And quite frankly, I think that 9/11 was an icon. 9/11 was an icon for the controlled demolition of the American empire.
White Wolf, I wish you'd called in earlier, brother. I know you got a lot of stuff to say. Just wind it up because we're just about out of time. What did you want to say about World War III? I only have about a minute, so if you can do that.
Okay, well, Our Lady of Fatima said that various nations would be annihilated, and that's what I think we're on the verge of. I think that basically that this country is going down. It's going down by civil war, and it's going down. The missiles are going to start flying. Cities are going to get hit, and it's just going to be absolutely horrible. And I think this is only weeks away. And everybody's worried about Charlie Kirk and what's going on. But well, I'll try and come on next week and talk
Yeah,
on.
call earlier, because get in earlier, and we'll we'll keep doing this. I appreciate the people coming, and thanks everybody. Thanks for we'll get you on earlier so you can talk more, because I know you have a lot to say. Thanks everybody. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate the calls. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to I Protest. Take care.
All right, take care.